I was fired after 22 years. Working for an advertising company, they will regret it. The mahogany door to Richard Pemberton's office closed behind me with a soft click that echoed like thunder in my ears. 22 years of my life had just been reduced to a 15-minute meeting and a cardboard box that security would graciously allow me to fill with my personal belongings. "We're restructuring, Margaret," Richard had said, not even looking up from his laptop. "Your position has been eliminated. Nothing personal. Nothing personal." After 22 years of 60-hour weeks, missed family dinners, and postponed vacations, it was nothing personal. I stood in the hallway of Pemberton and Associates, the advertising agency I'd helped build from a scrappy startup to a powerhouse with offices in 3 cities. The walls were lined with award-winning campaigns I'd orchestrated, but my name appeared nowhere on the plaques. That was the advertising world for you. The creatives got the glory, the account managers got the bonuses, and people like me, the ones who actually made everything run, got forgotten. "Margaret," a gentle voice pulled me from my stupor. It was Elena, one of the junior designers I'd mentored. Her eyes were wide with concern. "Is it true? Did they really—" I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. Word traveled fast in our office. "But you're the backbone of this place," she whispered, glancing nervously toward Richard's office. "You know where all the bodies are buried, all the client histories, all the—" "Apparently that's not worth much anymore," I said, finding my voice at last. It came out steadier than I expected. "They've hired some hotshot MBA half my age to modernize operations. I'm a relic." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "This is so wrong." I patted her shoulder. "It's business, sweetheart. Just remember what I taught you about keeping detailed records of everything. You never know when you'll need them." As I walked to my desk, former desk, I noticed how many eyes followed me. Some were sympathetic, others carefully averted. The smell of fresh coffee from the break room, which had been a comfort for over 2 decades now, made my stomach turn. My desk was exactly as I'd left it this morning, not knowing it would be the last time. The photo of my daughter Sarah at her college graduation. The small, succulent plant that had somehow survived despite my black thumb. The drawer full of client files that I'd meticulously maintained even after we'd supposedly gone fully digital. I began placing items in the cardboard box, each one a small goodbye. The stapler I'd bought myself because the company issued one kept jamming. The coffee mug Sarah had given me that said, "World's okayest mom," a joke that always made me smile. The notebook where I kept track of every client's birthday, their kids' names, their favorite restaurants for lunch meetings. Ms. Chen, a security guard I didn't recognize, stood beside my desk. "I'm supposed to escort you out when you're ready." The humiliation burned, but I kept my face neutral. 5 more minutes. As I opened my bottom drawer, my hand touched the worn leather of an old journal. I'd started it my first week at Pemberton and Associates, back when there were only 12 of us, and we worked out of a converted warehouse. Inside were 22 years of observations, ideas, and yes, secrets. Every dirty trick Richard had pulled to win accounts. Every time he'd taken credit for someone else's work. Every questionable expense report. I'd kept it all out of habit, really. A lifetime of being the responsible one, the documenter, the keeper of institutional memory. I slipped the journal into my box. "Margaret, this is insane." Tom Morrison, the creative director, appeared at my desk. Unlike the others, he looked genuinely angry. "I just heard. Richard can't do this." "He just did. But the Steinberg account alone. You're the only one who knows how to handle their CEO. And the pharmaceutical campaigns, all those regulations you've memorized. They'll figure it out." I said, though we both knew they wouldn't. Not easily anyway. Tom lowered his voice. "Listen, my brother-in-law just started his own agency. They're small but growing. I could put in a word." I smiled at him, the first genuine smile since Richard's office. "Thank you, Tom, really. But I think I think maybe this is a sign. Maybe it's time for something different. The security guard cleared his throat. Time was up. I picked up my box, surprised by how light it was. 22 years, and it all fit in one cardboard box. As I walked through the office past the conference rooms where I'd mediated countless creative disputes, past the break room where I'd counseled junior employees through career crises, past the supply closet I'd reorganized so many times I could find anything in the dark, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The weight that had been pressing on my shoulders for years, the weight of being indispensable, of being the one who held all the pieces together, was lifting. Margaret, Grace the receptionist jumped up from her desk as I approached the lobby. I can't believe they're doing this to you. Take care of yourself, Grace, I said. And remember what I told you about those night classes. You're too smart to stay at that desk forever. The doors of Pemberton and Associates closed behind me and I stood on the sidewalk blinking in the afternoon sun. 22 years. I'd arrived here at 30, fresh from a failed marriage, determined to build a career that no one could take away from me. Now I was 52, standing on the same sidewalk with a cardboard box and a severance check. My phone buzzed. Sarah calling, probably having heard the news through the grapevine. Her best friend's mother worked in accounting. Mom, are you okay? I just heard. I'm fine, sweetheart, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. Actually, I'm better than fine. Can you meet me for dinner tonight? That new place you've been wanting to try? But Mom, it's Tuesday. You never leave work before 8 on Tuesdays. Well, my schedule just opened up considerably. I heard the worry in her pause. Are you sure you're okay? Sarah, do you remember when you were little and I missed your school play because of a client emergency? Mom, that was 15 years ago. I told you I forgave. And your high school graduation dinner when I had to leave early for a conference call with Tokyo. Udi. Mom, I'm done missing things, Sarah. I'll see you at 7. I hung up and stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of the box in my arms and the lightness in my chest. Then I hailed a cab, something I never did. Too expensive, Richard. Always said take the subway like everyone else. Where to? The driver asked. Home, I said. I need to drop some things off. Then I have some planning to do. Oh, that night over wine and overpriced pasta, I told Sarah everything. Not just about being fired, but about the years of being overlooked, undervalued, taken for granted. About how I'd become so focused on being indispensable that I'd forgotten to be happy. So what are you gonna do? She asked, twirling her fork nervously. I'm not sure yet, I admitted. But I know what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to take the first job that comes along. And I'm not going to forget that I know more about running an advertising agency than most people who actually run advertising agencies. Sarah smiled, then the same determined smile I saw in the mirror every morning. Good. It's about time you realized how amazing you are. Over the next few days, my phone rang constantly. Clients who'd heard the news, former colleagues expressing shock, even a few competitors sniffing around to see if I'd share any insider information. I responded politely to all of them, professional to the end, giving away nothing. But the most interesting call came from someone unexpected. Margaret, it's David Liu from the Steinberg account. David was the marketing director at Steinberg Industries, one of Pemberton's biggest and most demanding clients. I'd managed their account for 15 years, navigating the treacherous waters of their CEO's temper and their board's constantly shifting demands. David, how nice to hear from you, I said carefully. I assume you've heard about the restructuring. Restructuring, he scoffed. Is that what they're calling it? Listen, Margaret, I'll cut to the chase. Mr. Steinberg is furious. He just found out that not only are you gone, but they've assigned some kid fresh out of Wharton to our account. Kid doesn't know the first thing about our industry, much less our company culture. I made a sympathetic noise but said nothing. Here's the thing, David continued. Steinberg Industries is reviewing our agency relationships, all of them. Mr. Steinberg specifically asked me to find out what your plans are. I'm exploring my options, I said neutrally. Explore this option, we're thinking of moving to a boutique agency model. Multiple smaller firms instead of one big one. More personalized service, better attention to detail. The kind of thing you excelled at before Pemberton got too big for its britches. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my voice steady. That's an interesting approach. Margaret, I'm going to be blunt. If you were to start your own firm, Steinberg Industries would be very interested in becoming your first client. Mr. Steinberg said, and I quote, Margaret Chen is the only person in that godforsaken industry who actually listens to what I want. I sat down slowly. Steinberg Industries alone would be enough to launch an agency to establish credibility. Other clients would follow. That's quite an offer, David. It's not charity, he said quickly. It's business. You know our needs, our history, our quirks. We'd be getting continuity and expertise. You'd be getting a flagship client. Win-win. I'd need to think about it. I said, my mind already racing. Starting an agency isn't something you do overnight. Of course. But Margaret, don't think too long. We're making decisions by the end of the month. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment looking at the box of belongings from my desk. 22 years of being the woman behind the curtain making other people look good. Maybe it was time to step into the spotlight. I pulled out my laptop and began making lists. What I'd need to start an agency. Who I'd want to hire. Which clients might follow me. The numbers were daunting but not impossible. I had savings, good credit, and something more valuable, relationships built over 2 decades. My phone rang again. Elena, the junior designer. Margaret, I'm sorry to bother you, she said, her voice hushed. But I thought you should know. It's chaos here. Richard just lost the Hoffman Hotels account because no one knew about their CEO's daughter's wedding next week. You always sent flowers from the agency. And Tom says the pharmaceutical team is freaking out because they can't find your compliance checklist. I see, I said carefully. And Margaret, I'm not the only one who's unhappy. If you were to do something else, I think some of us might be interested in hearing about it. After Elena hung up, I opened the old leather journal I'd taken from my desk. 22 years of memories, but more than that. 22 years of lessons learned, mistakes observed, victories achieved. Everything I needed to know about running an agency was in these pages, not in some MBA textbook. The next morning, I dressed in my best suit. The one I'd bought for new business pitches but rarely wore because Richard said it made me look too ambitious. I had 3 appointments: my banker, a small business lawyer Tom had recommended, and a commercial real estate agent. By lunch, I had a business plan outlined, a strategy mapped out, and a name: Chen and Associates. Simple, professional, and putting my name front and center for the first time in my career. That afternoon, I made another round of calls to Tom, who laughed with delight when I offered him the position of creative director, to a brilliant accounts manager who'd left Pemberton after being passed over for promotion 3 times, to Elena, who cried when I offered her a senior designer position. But I'm not senior, she protested. You will be, I said. I'm building a team of people who were underestimated elsewhere. We're going to prove them all wrong. Within a week, I had commitments from 8 former colleagues, all talented, all overlooked, all eager for a fresh start. We met at my apartment, crowded around my dining room table, laptops and notebooks everywhere, ordering Chinese food and planning our future. We need to move fast, Tom said, sketching logo ideas on a napkin. Richard's already botching the Steinberg presentations. David Liu called me yesterday fishing for information. The pharmaceutical companies are getting nervous too, added Patricia, the accounts manager I'd recruited. Apparently, Pemberton missed a crucial regulatory deadline because no one knew Margaret's filing system. I looked around the table at these people who were willing to take a leap of faith with me. We're not going to badmouth Pemberton, I said firmly. We're going to be better than them, more agile, more attentive, more innovative. We're going to show them how it should be done. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Securing office space in a building that ironically was right across the street from Pemberton and Associates. Setting up business systems, creating our own client materials, and most importantly, reaching out to contacts who'd expressed interest in working with us. The response was overwhelming. It seemed that I wasn't the only one who'd felt undervalued by the big agencies. Clients were hungry for personalized attention, for someone who remembered their names and their needs. The day we officially opened Chen and Associates, I stood in our reception area, smaller than Pemberton's but clean and modern and ours. The team had surprised me with a plaque by the door, founded on the principle that every client and every employee matters. "Ready for this?" Tom asked, handing me a cup of coffee and a mug that said, "World's Best Boss," a gift from the team. "I've been ready for 22 years," I said. Our first client meeting was with Steinberg Industries. David Liu and Mr. Steinberg himself came to our offices a vote of confidence that didn't go unnoticed. As I presented our strategy, built on 15 years of deep knowledge but infused with fresh perspectives from my young team, I saw Mr. Steinberg actually smile. "This is what we've been missing," he said. "Someone who actually listens." Margaret considers Steinberg Industries your first official client. The contract was worth $3 million annually. Not huge by Pemberton standards, but more than enough to establish us as serious players. Word spread quickly. Within a month, we'd signed 6 more clients, all defectors from larger agencies who wanted more personalized service. Elena's innovative design work was winning awards. Tom's creative campaigns were getting noticed. And I was finally getting to do what I did best: building relationships, solving problems, making things run smoothly. But now, with my name on the door, the call from Richard came 3 months after I'd been fired. "Margaret," he said, his voice lacking its usual swagger, "I heard you've started your own firm. Congratulations." Thank you, Richard. Listen, I'll get straight to the point. We've had some challenges since you left. Client relations issues, organizational problems. I was wondering if you might consider coming back. We could discuss a senior management position, better compensation." I looked out my office window at the Pemberton building across the street. I could see Richard's corner office from here. "I appreciate the offer," I said calmly, "but I'm quite happy where I am." "Margaret, be reasonable. You're running a tiny shop. We could offer you resources, stability." "Richard," I interrupted something I'd never done in 22 years. "Do you know why you're really calling me?" Silence on the other end. "You're calling because in the 3 months since you fired me, you've lost 4 major accounts. Steinberg Industries alone was worth $10 million annually. The pharmaceutical companies are nervous because you've missed 2 regulatory deadlines. Your new operations MBA quit after 6 weeks because he couldn't handle the complexity. How do you—" "Because this is a small industry, Richard. People talk. And they especially talk to someone who treated them with respect for 22 years. More silence. "Here's what I think," I continued. "You thought I was replaceable because I wasn't flashy. I didn't have an MBA from a fancy school. I didn't play golf with clients or take credit for other people's work. I just quietly kept everything running. And now you're learning that sometimes the quiet ones are the most valuable. So you won't even consider—" "Goodbye, Richard. Good luck with the restructuring." I hung up and returned to my desk where a stack of new business proposals waited. My phone immediately buzzed with texts from Tom and Elena, who'd been watching from our conference room and saw me on the phone. "Was that who we think it was?" Elena's text read. "He'll live to regret it," Tom added. I smiled and texted back, "He already does." 1 year later, Chen and Associates had grown to 30 employees and 2 floors of office space. We'd won 3 industry awards and landed a feature in Advertising Age about boutique firms changing the industry landscape. But the moment that meant the most to me came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was in our conference room leading a strategy session for a new client when Sarah texted me. "Mom, can you make dinner tonight? I have news." "Of course," I texted back. 7 p.m. "Perfect, love you." I put my phone away and continued the meeting, but inside, I was glowing. A year ago, I would have been in a different conference room staying until midnight to fix someone else's mistakes, missing another dinner, another moment, another piece of life. Now I set my own schedule. I valued my own worth. I had built something from nothing, proved that experience and dedication were more valuable than flash and arrogance. After the meeting, I found Elena in the design studio, working on a campaign that would probably win us another award. "I'm heading out early today," I said. "Dinner with Sarah." She smiled. "Good for you." "Hey, Margaret. Thank you for taking a chance on me, on all of us." "Thank you for taking a chance on me," I replied. "For believing that a 52-year-old woman who'd just been fired could build something new. Are you kidding? We all knew you were the secret weapon at Pemberton. Richard just gave us the opportunity to prove it." As I left the office, my office with my name on the door, I passed the wall where we'd hung our awards and client testimonials. But my favorite thing on that wall was a simple framed quote that Elena had designed: "Success is the best revenge, but happiness is the best success." The Pemberton building cast a shadow over the street, but I walked through it into the sunlight. Let Richard sit in his corner office scrambling to hold on to clients who'd lost faith. Let him wonder how 22 years of institutional knowledge could walk out the door in a cardboard box and become his biggest competitor. I had emails from potential clients to answer proposals, to review a team to lead. But first, I had dinner with my daughter. For the first time in my career, I had my priorities straight. The security guard at Pemberton had been wrong that day. He wasn't escorting me out. He was escorting me to freedom. And as for regret, well, Richard Pemberton had cornered the market on that. Every time he looked out his window and saw our logo across the street, every time another client left for personalized service, every time he remembered that he'd fired the woman who'd held his company together, thinking she was expendable. I'd built my career on being indispensable, but I'd built my company on something better, proving that everyone has value, that experience matters, and that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is getting fired. 22 years at Pemberton and Associates had taught me everything I needed to know about running an advertising agency. But it took getting fired to teach me everything I needed to know about running my own life. The text from Sarah buzzed again. "Can't wait to share my news. You're going to be so proud." I smiled and picked up my pace. Whatever her news was, I'd be there to hear it. Present, engaged, and exactly where I needed to be. Not behind the scenes anymore, but center stage in my own success story. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I'd learned something better. Success is a dish best shared with the people who believed in you when you barely believed in yourself. And that was a feast that Richard Pemberton in his corner office, with his dwindling client list and his MBA consultants, would never taste. Looking back, getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to stop accepting less than I deserved and start building exactly what I wanted. Chen & Associates wasn't just a business. It was proof that sometimes the most valuable assets aren't the ones with the fanciest degrees or the biggest egos. Sometimes they're the ones who show up, do the work, and keep everyone else moving forward. The ones who remember birthdays and regulations and the names of clients' children. The ones who build relationships instead of just campaigns. Richard Pemberton had thought I was expendable. He'd reduced 22 years to a 15-minute meeting and a cardboard box. But in doing so, he'd set me free to prove what I'd always known: that the most powerful person in any organization isn't always the one in the corner office. Sometimes it's the one who knows where all the bodies are buried and decides it's time to build something better on fresh ground. Epilogue 5 years later. The headline in Advertising Age read, "Pemberton and Associates acquired by Chen & Associates in surprise merger." I stood in what used to be Richard's corner office, now mine, and looked at the wall where his awards used to hang. In their place were photos of my team testimonials from clients who'd grown with us, and that same framed quote about success and happiness. Richard had retired quietly the year before, his agency struggling and his reputation tarnished. The board approached me about the acquisition, knowing that our company culture and client relationships were exactly what Pemberton needed. Ms. Chen, my assistant, yes, I finally had one, knocked on the door. The integration team is ready for you in conference room A. I'll be right there. I took one last look around the office. Same view, same mahogany desk, but everything else had changed. The fear-based culture Richard had cultivated was gone, replaced by one of mutual respect and recognition. The clients who'd fled were returning. The employees who'd been overlooked were thriving. As I headed to the conference room, I passed the spot where I'd stood 5 years ago, with my cardboard box being escorted out by security. Now I was escorting Pemberton and Associates into a new era. The meeting was full of former Pemberton employees, many of whom I'd worked with for years. Some looked nervous, wondering if I'd come for revenge. But I opened with a simple statement. Everyone in this room has value. My job is to help you prove it. The relief in the room was palpable. Over the next hour, I outlined our integration plan. No immediate layoffs, comprehensive training, and a new appreciation system that recognized contributions at every level. After the meeting, I found a moment alone in my old cubicle area. It had been converted to an open workspace, but I could still remember exactly where my desk had sat, where I'd packed that cardboard box, where my professional life had ended and my entrepreneurial life had begun. Margaret, Tom appeared beside me. You okay? Just remembering, I said. Having second thoughts about buying this place. I shook my head. No, we're not buying Pemberton to destroy it. We're buying it to show what it could have been all along. That night I had dinner with Sarah and her husband and my 6-month-old granddaughter. As I held little Emma, Sarah said, I still can't believe you bought Pemberton. It's like the ultimate comeback story. It's not about comeback, I said, watching Emma grab at my necklace with her tiny fingers. It's about moving forward, taking the lessons from the past and building something better. Still, Sarah grinned. Richard must be dying knowing you own his company now. I thought about it for a moment. You know what I hope he's not? I hope he's somewhere finally understanding that leadership isn't about power or control or corner offices. It's about bringing out the best in people. I learned that the hard way. Maybe now he has too. Emma gurgled happily and I kissed her forehead. She'd grow up in a world where hopefully people like her grandmother wouldn't have to wait 22 years to be valued, where being fired wouldn't be a devastating end but a potential beginning. The next morning, I implemented my first official policy as owner of both companies. No employee could be terminated without a comprehensive review of their contributions beyond their job description. The quiet heroes, the organizational glue, the institutional memory keepers, they would all be recognized. Standing in the lobby of the merged company, watching employees from both firms mingling over coffee-sharing ideas, building something new together. I thought about that 15-minute meeting 5 years ago. Nothing personal, Richard had said. He was wrong. It had been entirely personal. And that's exactly why it had led to something so much better. Because when you make business personal, when you value people as individuals, remember their names, acknowledge their contributions, that's when you build something that lasts. Chen and Associates hadn't succeeded because I was a business genius. We'd succeeded because we remembered that business is at its heart about people. And people I'd learned over 27 years in advertising always remember how you made them feel. Richard Pemberton had made me feel disposable. So I'd built something that made everyone feel essential. He thought he was restructuring. Turns out he was just making room for something better. And that cardboard box, I still keep it in my office, a reminder that sometimes the best things come in the humblest packages. And that being fired after 22 years isn't an ending. Sometimes it's just the push you need to finally begin.